No roof, no walls but the sky. For 2 million years, this is how we lived. Not hiding, building. We were told a lie about our ancestors, fur-clad, firelit, huddled in stone mouths, waiting out the dark. It's a comforting picture. It's also almost completely wrong. Real caves, safe ones, livable ones, were rare. Most of our species never saw the inside of one. So what did they do instead for 2 million years with no walls and no roof? They built. And what they built should not have been possible. Let's go back. Further than fire. Further than language, maybe. Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania. 1.8 million years ago. This is where Homo habilis lived. No metal, no rope, no plan drawn on anything. And yet archaeologists Mary and Louis Leakey found something here that shouldn't exist this early. Stones. Some over 30 pounds, dragged from far away and arranged in a circle. 12 feet across, not scattered, placed. Thorn branches were lashed across the gaps. A windbreak. A wall. The first structure our species ever built with intention. Think about what that required. Someone had to imagine a shelter that didn't exist yet. Carry the weight of it, stone by stone. Decide where each piece belonged. That is not instinct. That is architecture. And once they started, they never stopped inventing. 400,000 years ago. A forest in what is now Germany. Ground level was dangerous. Predators moved through the underbrush at night. Floodwater pooled in the low places. So these humans did something almost nobody expects. They looked up. At a site called Bilzingsleben, the evidence is still there in the tool marks. Humans selected living trees. Not just any trees. Ones with the right branch angle, the right strength, the right height. They climbed, and they built platforms in the canopy. Beds in the sky, they wove smaller branches into mats to sleep on, stripped bark and broad leaves into a lean-to roof, twisted plant fiber by hand into cordage strong enough to hold it all together, 30 feet above the forest floor. They understood weight distribution. They understood which branches would hold multiple adults without snapping and which would fail. This is engineering. 200,000 generations before we had a word for it. But the strangest chapter comes next. The steppes of Russia, 800,000 years ago. No caves here, no forests to climb, just flat, open grassland and wind that never stops. So they went the only direction left, down. At a site called Kostroma, humans dug, 6 feet deep in a 10 feet wide, oval chambers carved from raw earth using nothing but wooden digging sticks and flat stones as shovels. They piled the excavated dirt into a ring around the pit, an earthen windbreak. Inside, they lined the walls with grass and hide, so the earth wouldn't collapse in on them while they slept. Overhead, a lattice of bent saplings held a woven grass roof, removable, like a door you could lift straight off. They built underground houses before they ever built one above the ground, and it kept getting more advanced. At a site in Israel, roughly 750,000 years old, archaeologists found something that should feel modern. Zones. One area for sleeping, a separate area for making tools, another for preparing food, a designated place, kept apart for waste. That is not a group of animals sheltering from rain, that is a floor plan. Somebody, 750,000 years ago, decided where things belonged, and the group agreed. And they kept agreeing, camp after camp, for generations. Water was next. At Terra Amata in France, 400,000 years ago, there were no cave walls to channel the rain away. So they dug their own drainage trenches, cut deliberately around the shelter to divert water before it reached where they slept. Some shelters even sat on raised platforms, built specifically to survive seasonal flooding. They weren't waiting for the land to protect them, they were redesigning it. And the further they spread, the more specialized it got. In coastal regions, driftwood and seaweed became dome-shaped huts, anchored with stone and shell. In the desert, where almost nothing grows, they learned to read the few resources available. Date palm fronds for a roof, dried grass for insulation, and clay-rich soil packed into the walls to keep the water out. Every environment got its own solution. Every solution required knowledge that had to be taught deliberately from one generation to the next. But nothing prepares you for what they found in Georgia. Dmanisi, 1.8 million years old, older than most of what we've already covered. Here, archaeologists uncovered something that shouldn't be possible this early in human history: a modular shelter system, wooden poles, cut to standardized lengths, buried in underground caches, hide covers, folded and stored in separate pits nearby. When the group returned to this location, sometimes a full season later, They dug up the poles, dug up the hides, and reassembled the exact same structure, in the same footprint, in a matter of hours. This wasn't a shelter built once out of necessity. This was a system designed to be used again and again, year after year. That means these humans weren't just reacting to the world in front of them. They were planning for a future they hadn't seen yet. So when caves finally do enter this story, much later than you'd think, they weren't a rescue. For many groups, they were a downgrade. Caves were damp, poorly ventilated, often already occupied by something with teeth, frequently located far from water or good hunting ground. Constructed shelters, by comparison, could be placed exactly where they were needed, and even when humans did move into caves, they refused to just accept them as they were. At Kesem Cave in Israel, 400,000 years old, the interior had been extensively modified. Artificial walls built inside the stone, elevated sleeping areas, designated activity zones carved out of raw rock. They didn't move into nature. They forced nature to become what they needed. And building all of this, the platforms, the pits, the modular frames, required something more than tools. It required each other. At a site called Schöningen in Germany, 400,000 years old, shelter construction sites doubled as centers for tool-making, food processing, and social contact. Building a home wasn't a solitary act. It took cooperation, specialized roles, trust. Some researchers believe this, the shared act of building shelter together, may be one of the forces that pushed early humans toward the complex social bonds that would eventually define us as a species. We didn't just build homes. Building homes may have built us. Eventually, ice ages came, resources thinned, and in the coldest stretches, the energy savings of a natural cave outweighed its discomforts. Cave use increased. But even then, many groups kept enhancing those caves with the same constructed elements they had always used: walls, platforms, zones. The old techniques never disappeared. They just moved underground with us. And they outlived us too. Indigenous peoples across the world carried these same principles forward for millions of years. The dome shelters of Arctic peoples, the elevated platforms of tropical forest dwellers, the underground homes of desert cultures. All of it echoes something first invented on the plains of East Africa 2 million years before any of it had a name. Even today, military survival programs teach methods first developed by humans who had nothing but shaped stone and sharpened wood. Read the landscape. Work with the material in front of you. Build modular. Build fast. Build smart. The next time you see a shelter made from tarps and shopping carts, or a disaster relief structure built from prefabricated panels in a matter of hours, you are looking at an idea 2 million years old. We call them cavemen, but they weren't hiding in the dark, waiting for the world to be survivable. They were the first architects, the first engineers, the first city planners, working with nothing but stone, branch, and a mind that refused to accept the world as it was given to them. And somewhere beneath every roof you have ever slept under, there is a shape older than caves, older than fire, the shape of a species that never learned to just endure, only to build.